All right, guys, it's time for the Zoe Bowl quarter review, brought to you by currently last place, but also still your commissioner, me, Andrew Skolitsky. So let's bounce into it. First of all, why it's more of the 1/3 of the regular season. I'm still considering it the quarter review because there's 3 games on top of the 13 regular season games. So whatever, I'm considering this the quarter review. So here's our current standings with Caleb and Josh on top, familiar faces as they've won the most Zoe Bowls in the past. No need to look at the bottom. We can just focus on the bright side here. But of course, this is just one standings. I have my own personal standings that I've created, throwing together a lot of cool different numbers that I've come up with. Adding in addition to the regular standings, I give a point total to the most points for. I also add points against. That's kind of a luck factor. I give those all a ranking on top of the actual rankings. I add that all together. I get a new total, which is totally different from the regular standings. Still me in last. Still Caleb and Josh on top. Anyway, let's take a look at the not so Fab Five, the 1 and 3 teams. Kind of wanted to go over some of the key players, excuses for some of these teams, or the reasons why they're doing well as we get past these losers here. Starting with myself, my 3 losses, they were close, within 10 points. I have Freeman hurt. I would consider that my excuse. For Vince, he gets Ingram back finally. He invested a lot of money in that player, and hopefully it's an RB1. Drake's been pretty bad for him as well. As for Jason, he's the 3rd highest points against, so he's had a pretty rough road. I think he did still luck out with Connor and Ajayi, even having them on his team. He's got some good players, but I don't know how great it looks ahead for him. I don't know how strong of an excuse that is for where he's at. Brian, he's the number 1 in points against, and he traded for McCoy, who is now hurt. So we both traded 2 running backs that both ended up getting hurt. So I guess at the end of the day, not a terrible trade for him. Keenan Allen, I don't want to say he's underperforming because he's still doing decent, but I don't think it's as much as you're hoping for. I think when you get Keenan Allen, you're hoping he does a little better than he's currently doing. Then last we have Mike. He's 2nd in points against. So again, you see the 3 highest points against are down in this 1 and 3 area, as to be expected. And he's 7th points for. So he's also had a lot of close games. I think he's, decent scoring, had a hard schedule. How would I rank these 5 teams of 1 and 3? Well, I would put Vince and I ahead of Jason. Jason will be losing Connor right around that week 8 mark. And then hopefully Vince and I are both getting an RB1 back. I think I'll get Freeman back and he should get Ingram. For Mike, I think he goes up to the top. I kind of talked about how he's 7th in scoring right now. If he stays healthy, keeps getting points, I think it'll start going his way a little bit more. Last place is Brian. I'm not saying his team should panic, but that injury can very easily be re-aggravated. So he's lost a star player. He has the most points against him, and he has the least points scored. So it's not looking good for Brian. Out of the 1 and 3 teams, I'd say he should be the most panicked. All right, so now there's 2 teams of 2 and 2. That's Jason Cole and Joe Hoover. They both have injuries. So Jerick McKinnon, he's not coming back. And Dalvin Cook and Odell Beckham, again, it's not that they're doing terrible. I think they're just underperforming for what you would expect from them. Joe has lost Fournette on and off. He's still gotten some games out of him, but he should be coming back hopefully. And those are their excuses for why they don't have an extra win on here. How would I rank them? Well, I'm going to stick with Joe here. I had him as my number 1 at the beginning of the season, so I do think his team has a lot of depth, even with Fournette hurt. Hopefully he comes back, gets some good games. He's got some players that are performing well outside of his key players. Cole, I think, is still going to have trouble with that. I don't know. Personally, I don't believe Dalvin Cook either gets healthy or plays very well down the line. The 5 teams that are winning, all 3 and 1 here, we've got Josh, Thomas, Matt, Caleb, and Brandon. I'll start with Brandon, number 1 points for. I don't know. You can't really ask for much more than that. Caleb, he has no Bell and injured Mixon. That's more of an excuse why he's not undefeated, I guess. For Matt, he's got Cooper Kupp, who I think's the real deal. I mean, I already believed Cooper Kupp was the real deal, but if you were doubting before, I think it's hard to argue that he's not at least wide receiver 2 on the low end, if not a wide receiver 1. He's been looking great so far. And on top of his already key players, Stephon Diggs and Barkley both been doing well. For Thomas, he has the least points against him, so a little bit of a luck factor on him. I'll be honest, Juju Smith-Schuster was one of those people I really doubted, and he's been killing it so far this year. So I'll have to eat my own words on that one. I was not a believer, and so far, so good. On Josh here, he's had some solid performances from outside of his key players. He's had Crowell busting out, having a good game. So, all right, so ranking the 3-1 teams, I'm going to have to push Thomas and Josh down, kind of as the tied for the worst situation out of the three. Even though Josh is second overall, it's hard for me to trust that his players will keep doing so well. But so far, he's been managing, and he's won 2 Zoe Bowls before, so it wouldn't surprise me if he figures out a way to make this the winning team this year. Thomas, he has the least points against, so again, kind of the reasons I had Thomas ranked lower at the beginning of the year. It's a trust issue of will he continue to manage his team, although he has been so far. He's made trades, he's made moves, he's been doing a good job so far, but also he's had an easy path so far. So then I'll leave Matt right in the middle, and for the 2 people, I have Caleb slightly ahead of Brandon. Brandon, I'll say, is number 1 points for. So, I mean, that's kind of the most important thing in fantasy, I would say. Score a lot of points, and he's done that the best. So, it's hard not to say he's number 1. The only reason I give Caleb the edge here is he's already doing so well without Bell, who's coming back, and Mixon being injured. He's basically getting 2 good running backs coming back to him, and he's already up on top. He's number 1 in the rankings. He's number 1 in my personal rankings. Not that I think that matters to anyone but me. So, yeah, I'm going to go with Caleb as number 1 overall here as we stand at 4 games in. But, the important thing is, even if you're at the bottom, not that I have any personal bias, don't give up. We've had most of the teams that go on a winning run are teams that barely sneak into the playoffs, and their team gets hot at the last minute and, ends up winning it all. So,
is that what you tell yourself at night?
For everyone at the bottom here with me, I'd say, never give up, never surrender. I'm calling it right now. I fully plan to make the playoffs. I actually love my team, even though I've clearly, by most metrics, I'm doing garbage. I think this is my year. I'm feeling really good about my team. I think I have a shot. I definitely think I'll be doing better than Matt Erdman. I mean, I'll make a water bet right now that I finished further than him. If he wants to go ahead and accept that, feel free. So good luck to everyone, and see you next week.